Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The premise for this second edition of my Insight series is that when American boxing is strong, it's good for boxing in general. I truly believe that. It carries the sport. It brings a huge amount of exposure and thus fans to the sport. Fans who then start getting interested in boxing and other divisions. There's definitely a whole trickle down effect with boxing when heavyweight boxing is strong. You're seeing it in the UK right now. And let's face it, people love to see skilled, big men beat the crap out of each other. There is something quite primal about that. It's no secret, the American heavyweight scene has been largely on hiatus for the past 15 years or so. Not a lot doing. There's been no big name American fighters that we've been able to follow and anticipate every move. And when I say we, I will qualify that. I don't mean just American fans, I mean boxing fans around the world. You probably don't know this if you're an American, but American culture is omnipresent in Western countries. It pervades every aspect of our lives. Your sports, your heroes become ours. It's the same with TV and celebrities. It's fair to say, though, that no heavyweight boxer from America has taken the mantle from the likes of Mike Tyson or Evander Holyfield. Sure, there's been some times we've been teased, and we have been teased often with glimpses of the next big thing, but then it's been a mirage, flash in the pan. The fighter has proven to be like the rest of us, human, with human like frailties. There was a time that if you asked a non boxing fan at random, who is the heavyweight champ of the world? A lot of them would know, regardless of where they came from. And when I say that, I mean in the world. The fact that some people still say that Mike Tyson is the heavyweight champ of the world is a pretty sad state of affairs. I would challenge you to go ask a bunch of people who you know are non boxing fans just who is currently the champ. See what they say. The emergence of Britain Anthony Joshua, that is the only thing that I've seen since the 90s that has parallels the Tyson effect. Before the Klitschko fight, AJ mostly fought modest opposition, Dillian White included. Yet with each fight, each brutal KO, his profile grew and the hype grew in equal measure. The Klitschko fight, icing on the cake. It took it to the next level. You remember that ring walk, right? That was some pretty insane shit. The perceived strength of the heavyweight scene in the UK in recent years, with the likes of Joshua, Hay, White, even Price and Chisora, they're putting up a few competitive fights, maybe Price not so much, but definitely Chisora White last year, fight of the year in my view. So, and other prospects on the rise, coupled with world level fighters and fights in other divisions, that has seen the UK, in my view, wrest away the home of boxing title. You've even got the likes of Jorge Linares saying this week he will base himself in the UK from now on. At heavyweight, you've got Joseph Parker's team considering staying put in the UK after the Hughie Fury fight. Just imagine 10 years ago, if you'd have said this sort of thing, people would have laughed at you at the suggestion that the UK had usurped the US. Vegas, Madison Square Garden, LA, home to some of the biggest and best fights in recent decades. Not years, but decades, consistently. The US was boxing's mecca. It's fair to say that some divisions like welterweight and middleweight, for example, they've carried on without heavyweight. They're trundling along hunky dory. There's big fights, there's great fights, and that's without the heavyweight scene. But my question, and I'm limiting it to the American heavyweight scene because I believe it starts with the top. The heavyweight division is the true glamour division. Where did it all go wrong? Just like the Luis Ortiz non existent title shot which I broke down in my first insight piece a week ago. It's never just one factor, but many. Let's start with the maturation of professional sport. Salaries across sport have been on the rise in a rapid way since the 1980s. Remember, boxing purses at the top level and sort of that level just below were relatively competitive. If you were boxing at a good level, you were getting paid okay. But when you adjust that for inflation in the years since, it hasn't kept pace with other sports. Just look at football, baseball, basketball, and a myriad of other sports. That has siphoned away talent that might have otherwise been destined for the heavyweight boxing scene and all the trappings that come with it. Just look at cost, break it down. I mean, it's easy to see why. A decent heavyweight boxer typically is having to split his money in any number of directions: management fees, training fees, potential sanctioning fees, depending on whatever deal they have with their promoter. There will be transport, clothing, and gear. And then on top of that, they've got to live general living expenses, which more often than not will expend to supporting a family a lot of the time. If someone is earning, say, for example, 25 to 100K per fight, they fight 3 to 4 times a year. You can see they're not getting rich from the sport of boxing as everyone might expect. They're below the level where they're going to sort of be well off. They've got people taking a bite out of their ass financially every single time. So other sports, not only have they caught up, they've raced along. So you can turn professional and potentially earn millions of dollars almost right away in some sports. That's quite attractive. Dissipation. Let's face it, we're in the PC age these days. Back in the day, shit was brutal. Have you seen some of those playground photos from the year 1900? Google it. If you made it back from recess, you deserve to be alive. But in all seriousness, there has been well-documented drops in participation rates for contact sports like boxing over the past couple of decades across the Western world. That erodes the future pool of fighters from the get-go. Another reason that you must sort of look at here, and it goes to sort of some of what we're seeing right now, promoters. They're just not making the good fights at domestic level. How often are you seeing really top level domestic level fighters in the US face each other? I mean, perhaps that speaks to the dearth of available quality fighters. But think about it. When was the last humding of a fight that only involved American fighters? I'm talking top level guys, or at least close to it. It doesn't happen nearly often enough. The fact that the upcoming Jarrell Miller and Gerald Washington fight got made, it's awesome, but unfortunately, it's the exception, not the rule. Really, really good domestic level fights in the US, they don't happen that often, but they are a draw. They bring in fans. American fans want to see American fighters a lot of the time. But you're not putting those fights on, there's no fans to go around. I guess some of you, you've probably been saying under your breath this whole video, you haven't mentioned Deontay Wilder. There's a reason for that, and a good one, I think. He's not the next boxing phenom that will morph into a cultural phenomenon. That ship has sailed. The path that he's on is not that path. Anthony Joshua is on that path. I like Wilder. I do. He's got exceptional power, and he's an entertaining guy. But he's no Mike Tyson in terms of general appeal. The fact that he's had a lack of meaningful fights at the top level, that's hurt his brand. It really has. And let's face it, besides power, the only real comparison you can draw between Deontay Wilder and Mike Tyson right now is that they've got a huge amount of bums on their record. If Wilder wants the respect that he is after, and to ensure his legacy, he's got to take the big fights. It's kind of big fights or bust right now. Otherwise, he'll always be derided by fans. So no, while it does not fit the criteria of being the next big thing, it would have happened by now if it was going to happen. He's kind of like that coat you tried on, but it didn't quite fit. So you might ask, well, what of the unbeaten prospects, some of the guys that are coming up? Well, you'd probably argue that the top among them is Jarrell Miller. He is set for a fight with Gerald Washington at the end of this month. Currently 18-0 with one draw. You know, it's arguable that he's probably in that transition from prospect to contender, but look at his record. There really is nothing there. He's been living off his mouth. We will see if he's worth the hype in the Washington fight. Let's have a quick look at the rest of the list, and this is in descending order. I've gone to BoxRec and taken in the top 100. This is American fighters who do not have this is prospects. Well, what I would call prospects, guys in the top 100 that don't have a loss on their record. So we're not counting like an Andy Ruiz Jr. He lost to Parker last time out. So after Jarrell Miller, who have we got here? Trevor Bryan. He's currently 18-0. Trey Lippy Morrison, 13-0. LaRon Mitchell, 15-0. Cassius Chaney, 10-0. And Gregory Corbin, 14-0. No one on that list has blown me away. And to be honest, and you be honest, how many fights live for those guys have you seen, let alone YouTube? Most of them, I'm sure, they'll go on to have pretty decent careers. They'll be pretty good fighters. But none are likely to be on, the strength of what we've seen and heard already, the next American heavyweight messiah. As a comparable example, let's have a look at Daniel Dubois in the UK. He's only got a couple of fights under his belt right now, I think 3. But already he is being talked about as the next big thing. The buzz around him is incredible. I'm not hearing anything similar for any American fighters with that number of fights under their belt. Just in general, no one is sort of being hyped up in the same way that Daniel Dubois is. And I bet if you're honest, some of you have probably seen more highlights of his few knockouts than some of the other guys that I just mentioned. Just how you turn the heavyweight scene around in the US is up for debate. But maybe, just maybe, all it takes is one guy to lead the way, one fighter to come up, someone with talent and charisma in equal measure to shine the light back on the heavyweight division in the US. Sometimes one person, just one person, can make all the difference. That's it from me. Hit like and subscribe. I'm out.